Rick, I don't know if you're, we tell guys, sitting on a gold mine, just the cash cow, just being in the trades and the plumbing, just as a business, this thing throws off cash when it's set up properly. Hey, plumbing pros, welcome to the 459th episode of Potty Talk. I'm your host, Richard Bainey, the $1 Million Plumber, going solo. I'm going solo without the lovely Laura, my beautiful co-host. Well, she is right here. We got our bobblehead here. Well, in a way, she's here with me. Hey, it's good to have you here. I'm so glad that you're here with me. Hey, got a great episode here. We're going to have Rick and Joe with Commonwealth M&A. They're brokers, business brokers. Ultimately, we're looking to sell our plumbing businesses. Okay, I sold my plumbing business. Clients we work with, we already have selling their plumbing businesses. And your business needs to be set up to sell ultimately anyways. But the good news is you're literally sitting on a gold mine. I've said that for years, okay? But now it's never been a better time. You're definitely sitting on a gold mine right now, okay? Going into the season. And Rick and Joe are going to explain why here in just a moment. We'll bring them on in just a moment. Before we go any further, though, I do want to thank our sponsor, Congify here. Give them a listen here. Let's be blunt. If you're a plumbing contractor driving around in a plain white van, you're practically invisible. Without a distinctive, memorable brand, you're missing the chance to make an instant connection. You're good at what you do, but how are people supposed to see that you look blends in with every other generic service out there? Now meet Congify. They're not just another design outfit. They're your key to transforming that plain white van into a rolling, unmistakable symbol of trust, quality, and professionalism. Congify specializes in helping plumbing businesses build powerful brand identities, distinctive logos, bold color schemes, and unified messaging, all at a fraction of the cost top agencies charge. They'll make you impossible to ignore, giving you the confidence to dominate your local market and stand head and shoulders above the competition. If you're done feeling invisible, if you're ready to elevate your business from just another plumbing company to a household name, check out Congify. Don't settle for blending in. Stand out, own your market, and watch your business take off. All right, Congify, they are good people. Good stuff there, okay? Branding's important. Hey, we're going to find it's an important part of the equation, too, when it comes to sell your business, when we're talking about valuation. And we'll learn about that here in just a moment here. Well, let's just go ahead and get to them. All right, let's bring Rick and Joe on. Here they are. All right, here they are. As promised, I have Rick and Joe, all right, with Commonwealth. Hey, it's good to have you guys here. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having us. We're very excited. My name's Rick Calabrese. As you mentioned, I'm here with my partner, Joe Bergen. We're the co-founders of Commonwealth Mergers and Acquisitions based in suburban Philadelphia. We're happy to be here and talk with you about the plumbing industry.
I'm so excited to have you guys here on this podcast because this is what we're, ultimately what it's about. Is, with the academy, we're teaching the business of plumbing. All right. We get the guys in, you guys know the story because you talk with them. In fact, we were talking in the green room before we started here. I think you have a story. I'd like to maybe just touch on it just a little bit, but we're plumbers. I'm a plumber, and I fell into plumbing and I started, got into plumbing and found out I was pretty good at it. And then instead of making that guy money, I'll start my own plumbing business and, make the money myself. That's a common story. That's all kinds of guys, And so we get into it and find out that it's, there's much more to it than just the plumbing. So that's the business we're talking about it. But ultimately, and we don't think about this when we're starting out, but ultimately we want to sell this plumbing business. A business is meant to be set up to sell. And right now, it's a wonderful time to be in the plumbing industry because we have private equity firms and brokers are going after plumbing businesses. I'm starting to read and hear more about that. Is that true or not? Or is that just my fantasy?
No, that's 100% reality. I think on one of your previous shows, you even mentioned now infamous maybe, article in the Wall Street Journal. The new millionaire class in the United States is not Wall Street. It's not, those people I'm sure have money, right? It's plumbers. It's plumbers. Yes. Believe it or not. 20 years ago, that article, would be kind of crazy to think about it, but this is reality now. This is the market. And, it's since, regardless of your politics, since President Trump won and kind of the deregulatory environment that he's kind of putting forward along with low taxes, hopefully make those cuts permanent. I have a couple stats here based on, buyers pools. It says 61% of buyers now think it's a better time to sell your business than prior to the election. 58% said now business owners in the space can expect higher valuations than before the election. So
I know
it's not
that's
just
good.
me saying it, it's the buyers who really matters, right?
Well, I've already seen it. I've seen our clients now, and I'm proud of this. But there is the competitive side of me. I sold before in not as nice good a market as what we're going to be experiencing now. And so the multiples they're talking about now, I have clients getting better multiples than I, it's like, daggone, if I just held out a little bit longer here. But these are good times. So you're seeing it as well.
Absolutely. It's a recent transaction that's published online of a larger platform plumbing deal sold for it's an rumored 18 to 20 times EBITDA.
I know
So
that's
that's a platform deal. That's not going to be obviously, the same for small
right.
business owners, but it's very kind of points you in the direction of you can double digits can be out there.
Yes. Well, certainly, I want to get into that and explain, what we mean by that, because that's what we were talking about, this multiple effect, and, Rick, I don't know if you're, we tell guys, sitting on a gold mine, just the cash cow, just being in the trades and the plumbing,
Right.
just as a business, this thing throws off cash when it's set up properly. But they're also sitting on the gold mine again with the idea of selling down the road here. And again, I've had clients here that just, 3 to 4 years ago, they were broke, deeply in debt, and now are sold, cashed out for multi-millions. And that's the environment that you're sitting on, guys. Okay. And so that's what listen up to these guys here. Okay. So what are we looking at? And what's the process? Let's start with going deep. Because selling my business sounds like it could just be crazy complicated or like it's a big old deal. What is the process for selling my business?
Sure. It's certainly not as easy as, other large transactions, such as selling a piece of real estate. I think it's definitely more complicated than that. It all starts with planning and having a plan and a strategy, right? The more you prepare in the 1, 2, 3 years prior to when you want to sell, the easier it will be. As you can imagine, you have systems in place, you have processes, your books are clean. All things will probably, Joe especially, will get more into as throughout we talk here, but it's about a 6 to 9 month process from when you want to say, I'm ready to sell my business now until it's actually sold. So that's a long time.
Yeah.
So, the beginning and the end is kind of the most intense for our clients. The middle is kind of where we, interact more with the buyers and answer a lot of questions. But in the beginning, it's getting everything to us, or, an advisor or broker if you go that route to get everything prepared and organized. Then it's the buyer outreach. That takes a couple months, negotiating offers, reviewing financials. They're going to want to come see your operations and meet with you personally, maybe take you out to dinner to really get to know you, especially, if they're willing to pay a lot of millions of dollars, they really want to know what they're buying. And then obviously the last piece of it is the least fun, which is due diligence.
Yeah.
For lack of a better analogy, it's a full colonoscopy you're
Yes.
signing up
Okay.
for.
That's a good way of putting it. Exactly.
You
Yeah.
cannot hide anything. It's not
Right.
pleasant. It's something you have to do. You have to do the prep for it. You got to drink the fluid. But to get a less kind of gross analogy, it's something that takes time, and all stones will be unturned during that process. So your preparation there comes to fruition, and then we
Yeah.
have the closing.
And that's it. It does. The reality of it is, it does take, the 6 to 9 months for the whole process. And I like you're right on. That was my experience, and also experience with our clients, the due diligence process. Because at that point, you've agreed on a number. Everybody's feeling
Right.
good and happy. Everyone's smiling. But now we're going to come in and say, okay, is everything what we think it is? And it
Right.
really is a
Exactly.
colonoscopy on steroids.
No,
These guys
that's
come in,
exactly, and
all,
that's
all
where
of a sudden
most deals.
the smiles go away, and it's the number, the bean counters, and everybody's just looking. Okay, we
Mm.
believe what we see, but we're just going to make sure we're going to trust but verify.
Trust but verify. That's yeah,
Right?
or confirmatory is another word we hear a lot. But that's really where a lot of deals, unfortunately, dissolve or die. And that's just primarily due to lack of either understanding what's coming or a lack of preparedness. So if you can kind of accomplish those things, or setting your business up the correct way with you didn't pay me to say this, but doing the things that you talk about, getting out of the truck, cleaning up the books, having SOPs and standard procedures, all these things come up in diligence. They're diligence. So if you have them in order, makes it a lot easier.
So on that, Rick and Joe, I know you speak into this because we were talking about this. This is the financial side, then there's the touchy-feely side, and that's kind of what we're touching on right now. This sense of, okay, we're going to get in and due diligence and see the financials are correct, but we're kind of touching on this feeling like you as brokers, and you're looking at it, and the money's looking at. When I say the money, the big money, like the big money guys, right? How much of it is that the fact that they have their act together that helps with the multiple and just feeling better about the purchase? You know what I'm saying? That makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I can take this one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's right. So business valuation, it's a two-part equation, as many of your listeners may know. It's a multiple of cash flow or EBITDA. So now we're talking the multiple. That's the
Right.
intangible assessment of your business. The analogy I like to use is it's very akin to a price per square foot in real estate, right? Your square foot or your cash flow, that's measurable. It's objective. We can go in and see what the square footage is. The price per square foot or your multiple is entirely dependent upon these touchy-feely, intangible characteristics about your business.
Yeah.
And I would argue, I mean, we could talk for an hour about the different intangible factors that influence the multiple in business valuation. But number one, above all else, I would say is the level of owner dependency within that business. You have to zoom out a little bit and look at your business as an outsider would look at your business, right? If that business is 100% dependent upon your contribution and involvement, you don't really own a business, you own a job, right? No
Does
one
that
wants to
sound
go out
familiar?
and buy a job, right? No one wants to
Yeah.
go out and buy a job. They'll just go out and start it themselves, right?
Right.
The analogy I like to use in this context is if you've ever bought or sold a vehicle, right? You would
Yeah.
never buy a vehicle that required that seller to be in the passenger seat or in the driver's seat in order for you to operate that vehicle,
I
right?
love
It's
that.
the
Yeah.
same idea in the business world, right? Your business is a cash flow producing asset. It's not a job. And the more that you can treat it as that, the higher probability that you'll have, you know, an above market multiple in a transaction.
Right. It's that curb appeal, right? In real estate, we talk about curb appeal, right? It just makes it
Exactly.
a little bit more valuable. The same thing with our business. So if we can have things in place that looks like it's just, well, Rick, you mentioned like SOPs, which I call, that's
Right.
like, it's like the recipe of how you run the business. So we don't need another plumber to buy this business. You just want you want big money to buy your business, right? Well, they need to know the recipe. How do I run this thing with the least amount of friction? Well, that's why like
Exactly.
having your SOPs in place and have things systemized and not depending on the master plumber to be there. They can get any plumber to be there, you know?
Yeah, and
Kind of
it's
thing.
like Shark Tank, the show, is Mr. Wonderful always says, what happens if you got hit by a bus tomorrow?
Right.
That's what private equity is, and other buyers are assessing when they put the multiple on your business, right? If it's less dependent on the owner, it's less risky. They can pay more money. It's all comes down to risk, what the risk profile is of the business, and by de-risking it through implementing these systems and processes and goals, it makes it less risky.
Right. I love that. I want to kind of stay in that risk area because that is the thing. That was the thing for me being a trades guy. And I think that's why I love doing this, guys, and who I talk to. I'm talking to my guys because I'm this guy. I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. I just happen to be very good. I fell into plumbing. I happen to be very good at it. And then I wanted to do my own thing, right? Make the money myself. And here we are. And I've learned all this. And one of the things I had to learn was it's not about, it ain't about plumbing. But when it even came selling the business, it wasn't my skill that the investors were looking at because I was going to be gone. It didn't need if again if it needed me, it's just a job. It's not a machine or a system, right? Okay, that was hard for me to grasp, and that's what I want you to grasp. My listeners to grasp here. The opportunity here is not that you're the best plumber and that you have tons of customers. We need customers, but it's not the thing that you have customers because I can start a business and go get your customers, but it's the system. It's a system that I'm buying. It's a machine that I'm buying. And that was the
And
hardest thing for me to grasp. And I
yeah,
want to
and
really get across here. Yeah.
yeah, and it's also to go with that, it's the systems, it's also the quality of the revenue of
Yes.
customers, right? It's not just I have all these customers, I have all this revenue, right? Like for example, some buyers, you know, like you talk about too, new construction stuff to do. You have to wait 90 plus days sometimes to get paid. It's big projects, it's kind of one-offs. You know, that versus say 100 residential customers might add up to near similar amounts of revenue, but one, the second bucket is worth a lot more in a multiple than the first. So
Right.
it's understanding these concepts and actually implementing it. Like could be painful for a little bit, right? To kind of go about those changes, but the long term effect and the multiple will show it. Hopefully.
Yeah, we see that all, we see that all the time in the academy with our clients that come in, especially new construction. They'll be, they're a multi-million dollar company, but they're not making any money, you know, and then making that transition to residential service. All right. Where you can even have less customers, less work, so to speak, but you wind up making more money to the bottom line. That also winds up being less risk. You mentioned risk with the buyer. There's risk with new construction. We talk about this. There's only one customer. You may have 100 homes, but there's one decision maker, right? Right. With residential service, you have lots of decision makers. And so there's lots of opportunities, less risk of losing the
Absolutely.
call.
And the concern there from a buyer's perspective is you have too many of your eggs in one basket with one single customer. What's preventing that customer from picking up and walking away the day after closing, and I'm left holding the bag? So that's really what it comes down to, and why they really prefer the residential side, right? The residential non-new construction side, because your revenue is so diversified across a high number of customers.
Joe, could you say that again? I didn't pay you to say that, right? Okay.
No.
We haven't been paid anything yet.
That's
I don't
right.
know
Yeah.
what's going on.
Right. Okay. It's
We'll
the checks in
send
the
an
mail. The
invoice.
checks in the
Yeah,
mail,
we'll send
guys.
an
All right.
But no, I want you to say that again. I want you guys to hear that, because this is money talking. This is the money talking. I've seen it, Joe. Joe, I've seen this where I've had, new construction companies that are multi-millions. If they go to sell and their valuation's way lower than I've had service companies that are making less money, but they're making more money to the bottom line, but it's less risk, and they got a better
Exactly.
valuation,
Way better, substantially better. It's actually, we see it firsthand because we've done service-based businesses that are more commercial oriented sell for half the multiple that a residential oriented service business sells for. It's quite substantial. And I get it. I understand. As a business owner, it's hard to turn away high dollar work. I get it. It's hard. But if the goal is to maximize the value of your business over the long term, some of the best advice we could give is, if you are doing some of that residential work, try to make that 75% at least of what you do, because that's how you get a double digit multiple on exit, as opposed to those big commercial or new construction type jobs.
Right on. Say it again. You hear that, gang? All right, at least 75%. Joe, I say 90%, or what when
That's even better. That's
whatever.
even better.
Just because it helps things, going better, but at least 75%, right on. Okay. Because
Absolutely.
it's less risk. It's better. It's cash flow, money in the bank. It's those basic things. What is what are real investors looking for in a plumbing company? What are they looking for?
Yeah. So aside from what we touched on, maybe I'll take it from the non-financial side of things. What are they looking for within the business? We've touched on owner dependence. We've touched on the diversification of revenue. A big one is evidence of employee retention, especially your key employees.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to pay an employee above market to keep them, that's totally fine. Buyers are okay with that. Believe me, it's a lot more expensive to lose that employee than it is to keep them, especially if they're making you money, right? And the other thing is that has a good effect across the organization also, because if employees talk, we all know that they talk. If other employees within the organization see someone succeeding financially by being a key contributor, that has a positive effect across the entire organization, right? So it helps you day to day, but then it also helps you in your exit, because one of the first things buyers look at is, show me your employee matrix and what's your average and median tenure across the organization.
Yeah.
right?
So, Joe, I'm so glad you mentioned that because you're bringing back up. This is something that came out during the sorry, we were checking your books. You use the term. I'm sorry, I'm having a mental block. My age is hitting me here. Due diligence. I'm sorry, Rick. Due diligence,
That's okay.
and that is the trouble.
You want to forget about it. I get it.
Right. You do want to forget about it because it was this kind of a thing. Because Joe, that's exactly what happened in my exit. Was that the company came, okay, now we agreed to the number, we're feeling good. That's part of the thing. Because at that point, you kind of know the number and it feels like a done deal, but now we're going to due diligence. So they're going through my P&L amongst, of course, everything, right? And they get to my labor, and my labor was 24%, which is high, it was kind of high. And I just said, look, I pay top dollar because I keep these guys on and I don't have a lot of dance, I'm not bringing, they don't have a lot of turnover and these are good guys. And so I'm happy with, you can change it when you get there, but I recommend paying, and they were fine with that. They just wanted to know that I had an idea. Why am I paying that much? And they came out and they said exactly like that. No, we like to see that you're keeping people on. It doesn't matter what you pay. But
It's a good thing.
they wanted to know how I was thinking about it. They hit me up on it. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think this is related to the idea why these plumbing businesses are going for such high multiples. That's really a function of how difficult labor has been to find and keep. So the businesses that are out there showing evidence of employee retention, they're going to transact for a higher valuation than a business who's turning through employees every 6 months. Right. So it's all interconnected and related.
Oh, it is. And I love how you keep it. It really is simple. These things we're talking about are simple things. And that's what I'm about is simple. I know the process, I know it's more complicated, behind the scenes, but really the big money, that's why I call it the big money. We all get it, guys, when, we'll have local other companies offering to buy our companies, but they just, it's for little money and it's not real, right? I'm not talking about real money. Really what they're looking for are simple things. Can this thing run without you, right? Do we understand it? Is it clear on how to run this? Or is it systemized? It really isn't complicated, is it?
No, it's not. And what's funny about it is the factors that you change within your business to make it run more efficiently and more profitable are the same changes that you would make to increase the valuation. So not only do you sleep better, not only are you making more money, but when it comes time to exit, you make more money on the back end too. It's a virtuous cycle, right? You change things that improve the cash flow of your business, that increase the valuation, that at the same time help you sleep better because the business is running in absence of your day-to-day involvement.
Right.
Yeah. I would just add on, I think the hardest part, I think a lot of business owners understand that, and that's where they have to go. I think the emotional side, back to the financial emotional side, I know, so just real quick, Joe and I are both from blue collar family businesses too. My dad owned a landscaping business. And, he thought he was the best landscaper in the world and he had to be on the job sites. And if he wasn't there, it wasn't done. I hope he doesn't listen to this. If he does, whatever. But you have to take a step back and understand you have to empower your people to take the next step for you. And that's the only way you'll be able to grow and achieve that top multiple. So it's emotionally difficult for some of these business owners to do that, but that's just, with help and coaching, they come to understand that. And it really, once they make that change, it's just, skyrockets.
Oh, Rick, you hit right on. You hit right on it. We see it, the guys that we work with, the companies now, we've blessed now, work with hundreds, but the ones we see are successful, are the guys that are able to make that transition from being a craftsman to being thinking like thinking like a CEO, on the business side of things, and the pride, it's the ego thing, Rick. I mean,
It is.
your dad, I'm sure he was very good. He was a craftsman,
Yep.
landscaping.
Yep.
With plumbers, we feel like we're craftsmen. And so our egos are built onto that. And that's what made us good. But on the business side, it's not about the thing. It's about the business has certain requirements it has to meet. All right.
Yeah, there's an inflection point that you have to
Yeah.
hit where you realize I can only do so much myself here. If the
Right.
goal is to sell for big money, then once you hit that point, you got to jump in the pool.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Oh, guys. So what, um, man. So how do you guys, we talked around those kinds of things. How do you guys, like, using guys like you, how do you guys insist in the process? So, so if I'm
Yeah.
looking, I'm now ready, I'm getting, can I approach you to start putting
Yeah.
feelers out? How's the process go?
Yeah, sure. So ideally, we're like to be have an introduction with a business owner as soon as possible. So even 1, 2, 3 years before they want to sell, we're happy to make that introduction and talk through their business, give them an assessment of value for free. See what we're seeing in the market, kind of talk through that stuff with them. Ultimately, there's that point though. I'm ready, Rick and Joe. I'm ready to go. Okay. How do we assist in that process? Is kind of tenfold. We kind of handle everything from start to finish. Quarterback, you think of us as the quarterback. There's also stats that show, the benefits of using people like us. It's, Axial. It's a very prominent lower middle market deal site. Says that 10 times more buyers view your business, which creates higher leverage and more offers, get them fighting against each other. 75% more likely to sell when you use an M&A advisor than not. And lastly, your business tends to sell for 6 to 25% more on average by using an M&A intermediary. So we help them understand the market. We help build the marketing materials, the confidential information memorandum, which is the highlight reel of your business, basically.
Right.
At the same time, we're building a buyer list of 100, 200 plus names of people that we know, buyers that we know are doing acquisitions in your space and would be, very receptive of your business. That's kind of the front end of the process, the first 2 to 3 months. After that, we actually do the launch. We reach out anonymously, confidentially to all these groups. So, no one's going to know that your business for sale, because obviously that's the last thing you want to have happen until the business sells. So we
Yes.
work with you and approve that list and get non-disclosure agreements in effect with all those buyers prior to reaching out. Then we have, the meetings. We have countless meetings with the buyers, answering their questions. Ultimately, the handful or so that we think are going to make the best offer, we'll allow them to come down and have management meetings for a week or two at your offices to kind of interview each other, right? It's a two-way interview. They're interviewing you, you're interviewing them. You want to make sure they're going to take care of your business. They're the right partner for you. They're going to, value your employees the way you do. Then it's the fun part. Once we pick a buyer, we negotiate the offer. We go through due diligence. That's the colonoscopy we mentioned early. The not so fun part.
Yeah.
That's where things get really in detail and granular in their scope of what they're looking for, and trust but verify, right? That's what we help give them all the documents, talk with the lawyers, coordinate the process. It's a full-time job to do that. And we've tracked, just personally, we put in over 2,000 collective man hours on each deal that we represent. So,
I can believe it.
that's
Yeah.
that's going a little, a little extreme. That's how
And that is,
we do it.
you
But
guys, yeah.
can you imagine without us, you're running your business, right? You're the CEO of
Right.
your business. How are you going to answer all these questions? You'd be up till 3 a.m. every night, pulling your hair out. So we help them through that process. And then ultimately, hopefully there's a closing and, the owner goes to the next stage of their life. Joe, I don't know if you want to add anything to that might have breezed over.
No, other than we should probably take our own advice on the owner dependence aspect,
Right.
because we are
Well, we're in
we
the
are
first
in the weeds.
stage. We got to get to the second stage.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
I know. Well, no, it is. So you guys are so needed. I know that, we haven't been talking about pay. That's something to talk about. I know you take a percentage of the deal or whatever, a small percentage. And for the time, it's really is a small percentage, but it is worth the small percentage. I know a lot of guys, and even I would think, well, no, instead of paying that, I can talk. But no, there's too much talking and there's too much stuff. And you're also too emotionally tied. So it's
yeah,
it's having, Rick and Joe looking at it and talking and going back and forth. And it does,
yeah.
it is so worth it. Highly
Yeah.
recommend it. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, we hold the buyers accountable, right? They know
Yeah.
they can't kind of screw, not that they all will, right? But they can't screw around with
Right.
us, because then we can go somewhere else. We know what's market. We know
Right.
how to educate our client on what a proper valuation is, what a proper, this is getting a little too in the weeds, what a fair adjustment is as we go through the due diligence process. we're happy to be I'm happy to be the bad guy, right? Because you're
That's
going to
it.
partner with this group.
Right.
If a difficult conversation has to happen, it's my job to stand in the middle and take those punches, and I'm happy to do that and punch back when we have to too, right? It's part of the
Exactly.
job.
Yep. No,
The other
definitely.
thing I would add, oh, I'm sorry. The other
No, go
thing I would
ahead.
add is our goal always, you had mentioned the success fee at the end of we don't get paid until the deal closes, right?
Right.
Really, fundamentally. But our goal is for that to be a 2 to 4x ROI on whatever the fee is in terms of valuation increase. So it's that ROI along with making the deal, tremendously easier to close and increasing the probability of closing. So it's a truly mutual beneficial arrangement in our eyes.
Yes, and
I
it
have to
is.
add, Joe, with my
Go
tax
ahead.
lawyer hat, it's fully deductible for tax purposes also.
Yeah. All right. I'm glad you say, it's a
We
mutually,
love deductions.
it's a very mutually beneficial relationship, and highly
Exactly.
recommend it just because of the time and the emotion of dealing with it. And even, going through the colonoscopy. And
Yeah.
it's having someone else that's representing you and kind of helping you through it. And again,
Well,
it's
here's
not
the
so,
deal, Richard. It's more likely than not you will be selling your business to a professional business buyer.
yes,
Someone who does this day in and day out, who does multiple acquisitions in a given year. If your goal is highest valuation, let's be good, that's probably who it's going to go to.
right,
You don't want to be negotiating the most important financial transaction of your life for the first time against someone like that.
right
And
on.
that's really the role that we play, is to ensure that you are well represented, that everything that's occurring throughout the diligence and transaction process is fair, that you're well represented, that someone is representing your interests that knows how to do this. That's what we do. That's
Right on.
fundamentally what we do.
Yeah, and that's what we believe in from our backgrounds too. It's like, I sold back to my dad again, pick on him again. I sold his business for him, and that's kind of, I understood how important that is to him. Like, and all of the small business owners in the United States, like they, they're the taxpayers. They employ people. They like that's how they feed their family. And to not have sophisticated, proper representation on the most important financial transaction of their life would gave us a lot of angst. And that's why we do this. Really, at the end of the day, it's meaningful for us to help these business owners get a great deal. That's what we do it, really.
Right. And you benefit from that. The bottom line is, guys, they,
Yeah.
they benefit from this. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. And this is a fight that you don't want to fight. I mean, I felt pretty good at my abilities to sell, and you probably do too, and wheel and deal and talk with, and I know my value, but this is so big. It's so emotional. And there's so many things out there, even just not only on the financial side, but the touchy-feely side. You want guys, like Rick and Joe, who understand what's acceptable out there and what's going on, and not emotionally tied, so they can push and they can fight for you, where you just aren't going to know, right? So no, definitely, guys. Are you guys dealing? I know you deal with the trades, so your firm is largely deal with a lot of trades. Are you do you have any plumbing businesses or anything that you're working with right now? And I know you can't talk specifics. I wouldn't ask you to talk specifics, but is there anything that we can learn that seems to be common that our guys could learn from what you're experiencing right now?
Yeah, we do. We are actively working on a plumbing engagement right now. A lot of what we've covered today has come up through this process. I think every single thing we covered today has come up through this process. We aren't exclusively, trades and home services, but I'd say
Okay.
we're heavily biased towards that. It's what we
Yeah.
like to do. As Rick had mentioned, that's our background with our family. My dad was a stonemason. Rick's dad was a landscaper. It's the type of individuals that we enjoy working with. But yeah, we are actively working on one right now. Really nice company, really great founders.
If you had
It's
something to add, what would you tell the guys that, that maybe this plumbing company wasn't prepared, or could help them, would have eased the process for them if they were better prepared? Does anything come to mind that you could share?
Yeah, I think there's always items here. I would say one of the things that have come up that I think would have been helpful for the transaction is having a better understanding of what their KPIs are, or their key performance indicators, right? It's, depending on what your goals are for the business, you may have a different set of KPIs. Focusing on things that aren't just cash in the bank are incredibly
Yeah.
important. right? Whether that's technician productivity, whether that's customer satisfaction. We're getting a lot of questions from buyers. What are the company's key KPIs, right? Companies that have that are actively tracking that as a team function better, but then also get looked at it in a very favorable light to buyers because it's a sign of sophistication within the business.
Yeah, and I would just add to that a formal KPI plan, right? Like a lot of people have KPIs informally. They check here and there, but every month, right? Every week maybe. If you set it and forget it, you can just update, you can set the processes and just input the different financial metrics or employee stats or whatever it is. It becomes a lot simpler to do that once you develop the initial upfront work. So formalized KPIs is a great answer there, Joe.
I love that you guys mentioned that. I got to brag for a moment because I got to brag for one of my clients. So I guess it wasn't directly bragging for me, but they sold here. It's been a year ago, but this one they were looking at his company, plumbing company that literally 3 years ago he was broke, and by the way, he sold for well 8 figures. Okay,
That's awesome.
3 years ago was broke, killing chickens in his backyard at night. So the he raised chickens in the backyard, but he killed them at night, butchered them at night, so that the HOA wouldn't get on them. So that's where they were. Okay, all right. He sold the business for 8 figures.
I love this country. It's great. This is a great story.
You just but you got to show up and do the work, right? You got to work. You can't wait.
No one's stopping you. Yep.
That's right. And and not a big area, by the way, not a huge market. Anyways, as private equity firm was looking at his plumbing company and a Nexstar company. I don't know if you're familiar with Nexstar, which is bigger. It's another, coaching trade organization group. But they chose his plumbing company to buy his plumbing company, and for more than the Nexstar company because of the KPIs that he was, which I teach a specific KPI, which is your HVI, your hourly value index, which we check every day. I won't go into detail here, but it's the only KPI that can tell you right now whether or not you're making money. It's the only KPI that they can do that. So the CFO of that company was so enthralled by that HVI and how that worked daily. Check when they got to what KPIs you're looking at. They switched from looking at the Nexstar company, which in our industry people know Nexstar, to an MDP company. And it was all because of that KPI. So I'm kind of proud of that. The KPIs are important. Right.
Yeah. It's all the stuff we mentioned. We're not just, obviously not making it up, but these are real things that the more boxes you check, right? So when they do their underwriting, the buyers, they don't have an actual checklist. Maybe they do, but they're just seeing how many boxes they can check based off the things we talked about. And the more boxes you check, the higher the multiple. It's really that simple. Like we come back to where we started. It is simple.
It is. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm.
So on that, guys,
check the boxes.
Check the boxes. So we're at that point, guys. I'm so glad you're here, and I could introduce you to everybody. And you guys, you want to check them out. Okay, you don't want to do this kind of thing alone. All right. And as you heard too, we can connect even before you're ready to sell. It's just starting the relationship and starting to look. Okay. All right. And we check them out. But we're talking a bit, guys in business right here. And you guys have seen it all. Okay. You've been around, you get it, right? What's a nugget of gold that you could share? We're here and, whether it's business or personal of, thinking of the deals that you've done and the companies you've talked to, the guys, what's just a piece of advice that each one of you could give?
I would say there's a lot of different ways we could go with this, but I think to summarize everything would be to zoom out and take an outsider's view of your own business occasionally. Set time aside, whether that's weekly, monthly, daily. Zoom out, take an outsider's view. If you were in a buyer's shoes, right? If you were buying a smaller plumbing business, what within that business would make you pay more, right? Think about it that way. Then apply that logic to your own business and make changes towards those considerations, and good things will happen.
Oh, I love it.
I got to follow that.
Yeah. You can handle it. You can handle it.
All right. I would say have a plan, have a goal. Like what is like a lot of people we speak to, in a couple of years and 3 years and 4 years and 5 years, have a target, work with professionals to develop a plan, whether it's the amount you need for retirement, the amount you want to sell the age you want to retire, and track it, set time parameters to track that. And then once you hit it, time to go. That's what I'd say. It's a lot easier to exit when you have a plan and you stick to the plan.
And these are simple things. I love even the guys, even in your nuggets of gold there. It's just simple stuff. It really is simple, but then it's doing it. It's not necessarily so easy doing it. That's always right.
Correct.
The equation is simple, but getting yourself to do the equation, maybe not as easy. I love it, guys.
We're victims of that ourselves. Yeah. Thanks for having us, Richard. This was awesome.
Oh, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for taking the time to being on. And I'm sure we're going to be talking again.
Thanks so much.
All right. Take care, guys. All right.
Have a good one.
All right. There you go. Hey, thank you, Rick and Joe. Hey, guys, nuggets of gold they were dropping there. All right. Go back and listen or watch or whatever again. Okay. This is very important stuff. Look, there's never been a better time to start thinking about selling your plumbing business. Of course, you should be, setting your business up to sell anyways. Okay. A business is meant to be set up to sell. All right. And doing so, that helps create good cash flow and all that kind of stuff. Great stuff there. All right. I love it. I'm so glad they spent some time. All right. So just check it out. Hey, if you are in that position, okay, looking to sell your business or interested in that kind of a thing, let's talk. Okay. We'll have a simple conversation. All right. Simply go to milliondollarplumber.com/call to schedule your strategy call, and we'll discuss how we can set you up. All right. In your plumbing business for a multi-million-dollar exit, okay? All right, that's for you, all right? There we go. Hey, it was great spending time together. I love spending this time together. But before I let you go, as always, I would remind you that you were purposefully and wonderfully created, and you were created to do great things. So plumb like a champion.